Welcome to my podcast, Love and Courageous. I'm your host, Demetris. And for today's episode, I'll be speaking about Texas, the state that passed a law wanting to teach Bible lessons in the schools. Texas Education Board voted to allow Bible-infused teachings in elementary schools under optional new curriculum that could honestly test the boundaries between religion and public classrooms. The material adopted by the Texas State Board of Education, which is controlled by elected Republicans, the bill was passed by an 8-7 vote over criticism that the lessons would convert to young learners and alienate students of faith other than Christianity. Supporters argue the Bible is a core feature of American history and that teaching it will enrich lessons. The vote allows schools in Texas, which has more than 5 million public school students, to begin using the material starting in kindergarten through fifth grade classrooms as early as next year. Republican lawmakers celebrated the vote, including Texas' powerful Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, who has pledged to pass legislation next year that will follow Louisiana and trying to require schools to display the Ten Commandments in classrooms. In a statement, Governor Greg Abbott called the vote a critical step forward to bring students back to the basics of education and provide the best education in the nation. Now, this is what the material says. So it says that the schools are not required to use the material, but those that would receive extra funding from the state. And the newly approved kindergarten materials, one lesson on helping one's neighbor, instructs teachers to talk about the golden rule using lessons from the Bible. Also, instructs the teachers to explain that the Bible is a collection of ancient texts and that its different parts are the core books of the Jewish and Christian religions. So in the third grade, the lessons are about the first Thanksgiving. The material directs teachers to discuss how the governor of Plymouth said a prayer and gave a speech that included references to several passages from the Christian Bible in the book of Psalms. Teachers are then instructed to tell students the book of Psalms is a collection of songs, poems, and hymns that are used in both Jewish and Christian worship. With this new curriculum, Texas would be the first state to introduce Bible lessons in schools in this manner, according to Matthew Patrick Shaw, who is an assistant professor of public policy and education at Vanderbilt University. Now, whether the lesson plans will be considered constitutional is up in the air. When it comes to creating Bible-infused lessons, the Texas Education Agency created its own instruction materials after a law was passed back in 2023 by the GOP-controlled legislature required the agency to do so. The lessons plans were publicly released this spring. Amanda Tyler, who is a executive director of the Baptist Joint Committee for Religious Liberty, said, I quote, "This curriculum is not age appropriate or subject matter appropriate in the way that it presents these Bible stories. Children who would read the material are simply too young to tell the difference between what is a faith claim and what is a matter of fact." Mary Castle, who is a director of government relations for Texas Values, a right-leaning advocacy group, said, I quote, "There are close to 300 common day phrases that actually come from the Bible, and that students will benefit from being able to understand a lot of these references." Now, even though this bill was passed, over 100 people testified at a board meeting that rung with emotion from parents to advocates and teachers. A Democrat who was on board, whose name is Rebecca Bell-Metaru, said the inclusion of religions in addition to Christianity in the materials was not an adequate attempt to change that bias. It seems to me like it is trying to place a band-aid on a gaping wound. One of the board members, who is a Republican, Leslie Rasan, said that she voted in favor for the curriculum. Texas plans to implement biblical teachings in public school lesson plans is the latest effort by Republican-controlled states to bring religion into the classroom. In Louisiana, a law to place the Ten Commandments in all public classrooms was blocked by a federal judge. Republican Governor Jeff Landry signed the bill into law back in June, prompting a group of Louisiana public school parents of different faiths to sue. Another state that has tried to pass a law to teach Bible lessons in the schools is Oklahoma. The state's top education official has tried to incorporate the Bible into lesson plans for children in the 5th grade through 12th grade. A group of teachers and parents filed a lawsuit to stop the Republican state superintendent's plan and his effort to spend $3 million to purchase Bibles for public schools. So the governors of these states are trying to claim the reason why they want to teach Bible lessons in the schools is, one, to help make America great or safer. Also, because they feel like this country has lost their Christian values, so they want to maintain that. But that's not the real reason why they want to teach the Bible in the schools. White people claim that America is a nation that was built off of Christianity, which is a freaking lie. One, because this is Native Americans' country. Two, because this country was built off of slavery. That is not Christianity. So the real reason why white people want Bible lessons to be taught in the schools is to keep white power alive. So if white people literally passed the law in every state so everybody will have to learn Christianity, that's power for them because they are controlling your life and your beliefs or values. And I don't know if anybody ever heard of white Christian nationalism, but it's a white racist terrorist group, to be honest. Now, white people claim they're Christians, but it's not a Christian group. White Christian nationalism is all about maintaining their whiteness. White Christian nationalism is where white people believe that they are dominant, so other races are not important. But also, if you do not have the same sexual orientation as them or the same beliefs, they feel like you are inferior. White people's vision of a Christian nation is rooted in white supremacy. White Christian nationalism is all about taking away people of color, women, LGBTQ community, and also poor people's rights. White people also use the government and other powerful positions to maintain their whiteness. And if you ever pay attention, white people definitely use religion as a excuse. They like to manipulate on why they kill blacks and also the LGBTQ community. So I'm going to give a few examples on how white people use Christianity to justify their wrongdoing. So like I said earlier, America was founded off of slavery. So when it comes to early English settlers, they used the Bible to justify colonizing native land. Also, when it comes to slavery, when the Europeans began to colonize North America, they saw the Atlantic slave trade as a way for them to grow. They used Christianity as an excuse to enslave black people. They often cited scriptures from the Bible. One story from the Old Testament where Noah's son Ham was condemned to perpetual servitude. Another example is during and after the Civil War, white Confederates used Christianity to create a alternate reality of Southern victimhood. This is where people get the lost cause myth from. The idea of the Civil War was about states' rights and not slavery. One of the most crucial parts of the lost cause ideology is the idea that the Old South, where white slave owners ruled over everyone else, will rise again. The lost cause ideology was compared to the resurrection of Christ so many times that historians refer to it as the lost cause religion, being described as marrying the ideas of Confederate heroism and Christian piety. Another prime example is Manifest Destiny. Manifest Destiny refers to the 19th century belief that white people were destined to expand westward across North America. White people claiming the rest of the continent under God's order, is what they like to say, was used to justify the acquisition of the Oregon country, New Mexico, California, and Texas. Now, due to the Manifest Destiny, they forced a lot of Native Americans from their land. And an estimated of 50 million Native Americans have passed away. So after segregation is another prime example where church congregations were still whites only, and as public schools began to desegregate, a lot of white people sent their children to private religious schools, schools that only accept certain students and rejected others. In some places, these so-called Christian academies were used as a reason to underfund public schools. Moral Majority is another prime example. Moral Majority was an American political organization that was founded in 1979 by Jerry Falwell, who was a religious leader, supposedly, and a televangelist to advance conservative social values. Even though the organization dissolved 10 years later, the Moral Majority organization helped to establish the religious right as a force in American politics. The reason why the organization Moral Majority was created was due to the social and cultural transformation that occurred in America during the 1960s and 70s. There were a lot of other movements that were being developed, such as the civil rights movement, gay rights movement, and women's rights movement. So a lot of white people that claimed to be Christian fundamentalists were upset about this and were determined to take the country back by creating the Moral Majority organization. Jerry Falwell described it as a pro-family and pro-American. It advanced conservative social values, opposing abortion, the Equal Rights Amendment, and gay rights. The organization also supported increased defense spending, a strong anti-communist foreign policy, and continued American support for Israel. So those were just a few prime examples of white people using Christianity as an excuse for their bigotry. And so that was all for the topic of today, and now I'm going to get into the Black History Fact. The Black History Fact for today will be about Oscar Micheaux, who was the first major black filmmaker in America. He directed and produced 44 films over the course of his career. Oscar Micheaux, who was born in 1884, moved to Chicago from a small Illinois town when he was just 17 years old. He shined shoes and worked in the meatpacking and steel industries before landing a job as a porter for the American Railway system. This was a job that allowed him to travel and save money and make connections with wealthy people who later helped him finance his films. In 1904, Oscar moved to South Dakota and became a successful homesteader amid a predominantly white population. The Government Homestead Act allowed citizens to acquire a free plot of land to farm. Even though the act included black people, discrimination kept a lot of black people from pursuing a homestead. Due to this, Oscar began writing about his experience on the frontier, submitting articles to the press as well as writing novels. His first novel, which was published in 1913, was The Conquest, the story of a Negro pioneer, and it was based on his life as a homesteader and the failure of his marriage. The book attracted a lot of attention from film production companies in Los Angeles that offered to adapt the book into a film. Now, however, negotiations fell apart when Oscar wanted to be involved in the film's production, so he decided to produce the film himself. After setting up his own film and book publishing company, he released The Homesteader in 1919. The silent black and white film featured a black man who enters a rocky marriage with a black woman, played by the pioneer black actress Evelyn Pree. Despite being in love with a white woman, Oscar Micheaux used his films to portray racial injustice suffered by black people, going into topics such as mob violence, lynching, and job discrimination. That is all for my episode for today. And for my next episode, I'll be speaking about the government and how it works. So thank you everyone for listening to my podcast, and I hope you all have a lovely day.